Jaya Gopi Jannavalabha Girivaradhari. Thank you. Jaya Gopi Jannavalabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Gopi Jannavalabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jannavalabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Gokulananda, Radha Gokulananda, Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Veshnipad Paramahansa Paravrajikacharya Ashtatarasata Sri Srimad Divine Grace Abhai Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nasta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavachuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, text number 33. Vidoropyudavachrutva Krishnasya Paramatmanaha Kridayopatadehasya Karmani shlagitani cha Vidoropyudavachrutva Krishnasya Paramatmanaha Kridayopatadehasya Karmani shlagitani cha Vidoropyudavachrutva Krishnasya Paramatmanaha Kridayopatadehasya Karmani shlagitani cha Shrutva Krishnasya Paramatmanaha Dehasya Karmani shlagitani cha Vidoropyudavachrutva Gitani cha. Ladies. Vidoropyudavachrutva Krishnasya Paramatmanaha Kridayo Pattadehasya Karmani Shlagitani cha Vidoropyudavachrutva Krishnasya Paramatmanaha Kridayo Pattadehasya Karmani Shlagitani cha. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai. Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanumana ki jai. Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai. Word for word. Viduraha. Vidura. Api. Also. Udavat. From the source of Udava. Shrutva. Having heard. Krishnasya. Of Lord Krishna. Paramatmanaha. Of the Supersoul. Kridaya. For the sake of pastimes in the mortal world. Upata. Extraordinarily accepted. Dehasya. Of the body. Karmani. Transcendental activities. Shlagitani. Most glorious. Cha. Also. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vidura also heard from Uddhava about the appearance and disappearance of Lord Krishna, the Supersoul, in the mortal world, which is a subject matter sought after with great perseverance by the great sages. Please repeat. Vidura also heard from Uddhava about the appearance and disappearance of Lord Krishna, the Supersoul, in the mortal world, which is a subject matter sought after with great perseverance by the great sages. Purport. The subject matter of the appearance and disappearance of the Supersoul, Lord Sri Krishna, is a mystery even for the great sages. The word Paramatmanaha is significant in this verse. An ordinary living being is generally called the Atma, but Lord Krishna is never an ordinary living being because he is Paramatma, the Supersoul. Yet his appearance as one of the human beings and his disappearance again from the mortal world are subject matters for the research workers who execute research work with great perseverance. Such subject matters are certainly of increasing interest because the researchers have to search out the transcendental abode of the Lord, which he enters after finishing his pastimes in the mortal world. But even the great sages have no information that beyond the material sky is the spiritual sky, where Sri Krishna eternally resides with his associates, although at the same time he exhibits his pastimes in the mortal world, in all the universes one after another. This fact is confirmed in Brahma Samhita 5.37. Goloka eva nivisat yakilatma bhutaha. The Lord, by his inconceivable potency, resides in his eternal abode, Goloka, yet at the same time as the Supersoul, he is present everywhere, in both the spiritual and material skies, by his multi-varieties of manifestation. Therefore, his appearance and disappearance are simultaneously going on, and no one can say definitely which of them is the beginning and which is the end. His eternal pastimes have no beginning or end, and one has to learn of them from the pure devotee only, and not waste valuable time in so-called research work. Viduro pyudavatstrutva krishnasya paramatmanaha kridayo pattadehasya karmani shlagitani cha. Vidura also heard from Uddhava about the appearance and disappearance of Lord Krishna, the Supersoul, in the mortal world, which is a subject matter sought after with great perseverance by the great sages. Om Ajnanatimmarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Vanchakalpatarupyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we're discussing the mysterious appearance of Lord Sri Krishna. And before I say anything further, I request the blessings of all the devotees present and those listening online, that I can say something that is relevant and that is according to Shastra. I want to read to you another purport, well, most of a purport, which is a very, I think, very excellent description of Lord Krishna's eternal pastimes. So it's from Madhya Lila, chapter 20, text 397. Ata eva golokastani nitya vihara brahmanda gani krami prakatya tahara. The eternal pastimes of Krishna are continuously taking place in the original Goloka Vrindavan planet. These same planets are gradually manifested within the material world these pastimes are gradually manifested within the material world in each and every Brahmanda. So here's a really technical, very ecstatic description of Krishna's pastimes, how they're going on eternally. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur elucidates this complicated explanation of Krishna's pastimes. Krishna's pastimes are always present in the material world in one of the many universes. These pastimes appear in the universes one after the other, just as the sun moves across the sky and measures the time. Krishna's appearance may be manifested in this universe at one moment, and immediately after his birth, this pastime is manifested in the next universe. After his killing of Putana is manifested in this universe, it is next manifested in another universe. Thus, all the pastimes of Krishna are eternally existing, both in the original Goloka Vrindavan planet and in the material universes. The 125 years calculated in our solar system to be Krishna's lifetime equal one moment of Krishna, or one moment for Krishna. One moment, these pastimes are manifest in one universe, and the next moment, they are manifested in the next universe. There are unlimited universes, and Krishna's pastimes are manifested one moment after the other in all of them. This rotation is explained through the example of the suns moving across the sky. Krishna appears and disappears in innumerable universes, just as the sun appears and disappears during the day. Although the sun appears to rise and set, it is continuously shining somewhere on this earth. Similarly, although Krishna's pastimes seem to appear and disappear, they are continuously existing in one Brahmanda universe or another. Thus, all of Krishna's Leelas are present simultaneously throughout the innumerable universes. By our limited senses, we cannot appreciate this. Therefore, Krishna's eternal pastimes are very difficult for us to understand. One should try to understand how they are taking place by understanding the example of the sun. Although the Lord is appearing constantly in the material universes, his pastimes are eternally present in the original Goloka Vrindavan. Therefore, these pastimes are called Nitya Lila, eternally present pastimes. Because we cannot see what is going on in other universes, it is a little difficult for us to understand how Krishna is eternally manifesting his pastimes. There are 14 Manus in one day of Brahma, and this time calculation is also taking place in other universes. Krishna's pastimes are manifest before 14 Manus expire. Although it is a little difficult to understand the eternal pastimes of Krishna, in this way we must accept the verdict of Vedic literatures. And the purport continues. So that should clear up one little misconception. And we can intellectually kind of understand these things. But there's even more to Krishna's pastimes. One may have a sort of intellectual understanding, but there's still a mystery. It's interesting that one devotee asked me a question. So what does it mean that if we understand the appearance and activities of the Lord, we go back to the spiritual world? Is it just a simple case of understanding his appearance? I mean, that he was born, that he's unborn, but yet he appears to be born. If we simply understand that, is that enough to go back to the spiritual world? One devotee asked this to me. And I did some research, because it actually matched what's in the purport today. The subject matter of the appearance and disappearance of the Supersoul Lord Krishna is a mystery even for the great sages. So I did some research and I discovered some of the mysteries of Krishna's appearance. Now, an atheist would probably say Krishna is either a myth or he is an ordinary human being who was born by union of male and female, right? This is the standard explanation of Krishna for one who is a materialist, one who's not a devotee. But our acharyas have explained that actually Krishna's birth is not by the union of male and female. His birth is actually, it takes place in stages. First of all, when Krishna came, he entered the heart of Vasudeva, and then he was transferred from the heart of Vasudeva to the heart of Devaki, and then he took birth. So it said, Bhagavan api vishvatma abhayam bhaktanam abhayankaraha avivesh angshabhagena mana anakadundubihi. That the Supreme Lord, who's known as Vishvatma. So what is the meaning of this word, Vishvatma? Anyone like to say?
The Supersoul of the universe.
Yes, the Supersoul. It's interesting that when we discuss Krishna's pastimes, Atma comes a lot. See, the word Paramatma appears in today's verse, and Vishvatma means the Supersoul. There's actually another meaning. I'll give you a hint. What does it mean to say devotees are Atma Buddhi? This is one of the qualities of a Majjhima Adhikari. A Majjhima Adhikari devotee thinks or conceives of other devotees as being Atma Buddhi. Means like oneself, or dear as oneself. So Atma means dear. So Vishvatma means Lord Krishna is very dear to everyone. So it has double meaning, you see. But if we look at the verse, here's one of the mysteries of this verse. It's from the 10th canto, this verse I quoted. And it actually accommodates several philosophies within Gaudiya Vaishnavism. If you look at other sampradayas, some of them, I think probably only one of them, the Sri Sampradaya, I would guess, thinks that Vishnu is the origin of Krishna. Now we say Krishna is the origin of Vishnu. Now of the 4 sampradayas, 3 of them are based upon Krishna. So I would guess that they all think that way, that Krishna is the source of Vishnu. And what's the famous verse from the Bhagavatam that states this? Bhagavan Swayam. Thank you. What's the translation?
There's a list of incarnations given in the previous. All of these are either portions or portions of the Supreme Lord. Lord Sri Krishna is the supreme source.
Thank you. Yes.
Paraphrase.
Oh, we've got the microphone now. Good. So this is known as the Parihasa Sutra, right? And Parivasa Sutra. Parihasa means happiness. Parivasa Sutra. And it's understood that all verses of the Bhagavatam must be understood in relation to this one verse. And anything that contradicts, any explanation that would contradict this verse should be rejected. So in this verse I mentioned, there's a term, angsa bhagena. Now, the word bhaga, I'll ask you again, what does the word bhaga mean? I'm looking for 2 meanings for bhaga. Because from the 2 meanings we get 2 different meanings of this verse. Opulence, yes. So Bhagavan, Krishna is known as Bhagavan, Aishvayasya Samagrasya. He possesses all bhaga, all opulences. But bhaga has another meaning. A portion, yes, exactly. So you've got the two main meanings. So angsha means portion as well, right? So angsha bhagena can carry two different meanings. If it means opulence, then it means angsha bhagena means with his opulences, with his partial opulences. So Krishna is full of all opulences, 6. There's 6 categories. And each of these is angsha, a part of Krishna. So angsha bhagena means Krishna appears with all his opulences. That's one of the meanings. But if we take bhaga to mean portion, it means he appears by a portion of a portion, which means one could argue that shows that Krishna is a portion of Vishnu, you see. So those who think that way, that's how they interpret the verse. So the Bhagavatam is going to say different things to different people according to their understanding. Now let's talk a little bit about Sanskrit grammar, because the word bhagena. Now, does anyone know there are 7 cases in Sanskrit? Does anyone know these 7 cases? We'll run through them in terms of Krishna. So the first one is known as the subject. Any sentence has a subject and an object. So the first case is the subject, which is known as the nominative. So how would you say Krishna in the nominative case? Anyone know? It's just Krishnaha, the subject of the verse, Krishnaha. Now in this verse, Viduraha, it's not up there. Viduraha is the subject of the verse. But if you want to make Krishna the object, you would say what? You'd say Krishnam. So Krishnaha is the subject, Krishnam is the object. And if you want to say the instrumental, you would say, anyone know? Krishnena. Now the instrumental, the third case, generally means 2 things. It means by or with. So in this example I gave previously, bhagena can mean with his opulence, and bhagena can mean by a portion, you see. So it's got 2 different meanings. And then Krishnaya means to Krishna or for Krishna. Now in our pranam mantras we recite to the acharyas, a lot of the words end in aya, because it's unto, to, often obeisance is unto. So when you say Namo Maha Vidanyaya, unto the magnanimous incarnation. See? So that's Krishnaya. Then you have Krishnat. Can someone scroll up a bit? Krishnat means from Krishna. So if you look at today's verse, you see Udavat means from the source of Udava, you see. So Krishnat means from Krishna. And then we have Krishnasya, which is also in today's verse, which means the genitive means of Krishna, you see. And Krishne means to Krishna or on Krishna. It means it's the locative. And the final one is the vocative. How do you say Krishna in the vocative? Very easy. Yeah, hey Krishna. And the ending is just Krishna. So the Mahamantra is all vocative. When we say, oh Krishna, we just say Krishna with no ending, you see. That's why the Mahamantra has got no ending to the words. Krishna and Rama is no ending, you see. So in this way, and the reason I'm telling you this is because some people say, how do you keep your interest in learning slokas? One way you can do it is you learn a few of the Sanskrit rules, and then when you study a sloka, you can put meaning to it and it becomes more meaningful. I've given a little tiny bit of the Sanskrit grammar, but it's a little bit goes a long way. I once created a whole A4 of different Sanskrit rules, and I found out that about 5% is what gets used nearly all the time, and the other 95% isn't really required. Most words end in A, so if you learn these words, this is for singular by the way, you have dual and you have plural, and then you have feminine and masculine, so it can expand. But anyway, these are the cases. So that's an example of how the Srimad Bhagavatam can give different meanings to different verses. Now there's another verse regarding the birth of Krishna. It's Tato Jagan Mangalam Achyutang Sham Samahita Sura Sutena Devi Dadara Sarvatmakam Atma Bhutam. What's the last line? Anyone remember it? Kashta Yatananda Karam Manastaha. This is describing how Krishna appears in the mind of Vasudeva, then he is transferred into the mind of Devaki. So it's said in this verse, it's Jagan Mangala, it's very auspicious to the whole universe, how he's transferred, and the birth of Krishna is very, very beautiful. So it's said that when Devaki was carrying Krishna, she became very, very beautiful, just like the moon rise on the eastern horizon. So if you've seen the moon rising, it's very, very beautiful. And actually Lord Chaitanya's birth is similarly described. Tad Bhavaja Samajani Satchigarba Sindau Harinduhu. The Lord is Harindu, meaning he's like the moon. Hari Indu, arising on the ocean. It's like the womb of Sachimata is like the ocean, and the moon is arising from the ocean. So the birth of Krishna is very, very beautiful. And actually to understand anything about the appearance of the Lord, we need to have taste. As Rupa Goswami says, Svalpapi Ruchiriva Chad Cha Bhakti Tattva Vabodakaha Yuktis tu Kevalanaiva Yadasya Apratistata. Logic has no foundation, it will not help you understand tattva, but if you have ruchi meaning taste, you have a little bit of taste, then the tattva will not be understood. So we want to enter deeply into the pastimes of the appearance and the activities of the Lord, and that way we can actually go back to the spiritual world, because that's what's said in the Bhagavad Gita. And one of the most quoted verses of the Bhagavad Gita from Srila Prabhupada is, everyone say together, Janma karma chame divyam ivam yoveti tatvadaha chaktva diham punar janma naiti mam eti sorjuna. So if we simply understand the appearance and activities, then mam eti means we go to Krishna. And naiti means no longer. Punarjanma naiti, na iti, means we do not go to punarjanma, which means rebirth. We don't go into the cycle of, we don't continue in the endless cycle of samsara, and we instead go back to Krishna's planet. So these are some of the mysteries of the birth of Krishna. Actually, there's more that can be said. But that verse I just quoted, it has the term achutangsha. Another one, this has another double meaning. It can mean one whose angshas are infallible, which means the original personality of Godhead, whose avatars and whose opulences are his angshas, and they are all infallible. All of Krishna's avatars are infallible. Krishna's potencies are infallible, so achutangsha means that. The other meaning is Krishna is an angsha of Achyuta or Vishnu. And that's the meaning that we as Gaudiya Vaishnavas do not accept. Achyutangsha means one whose potencies and avatars are all infallible. So it's very interesting how the Bhagavatam verses carry these multiple meanings. So here's a question. Who can tell me a verse, there's actually many verses, a verse from the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is mentioned as the Super Soul? I can think of a handful of them. I once researched it and there's over 20. Can you believe it? There's over 20 Sanskrit verses that mention the Super Soul, either directly or indirectly. No one knows? Yes, Vishal Prabhu. Yes, thank you. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam, yes. Hridish Arjuna Tishtati. Which chapter is that one in? 18. So we have one example, 18th chapter. Krishna says, I am situated in everyone's heart. Yes? Thank you. So you've quoted exactly the first half, which is exactly what is mentioned. Which chapter is that one in? 15. Yeah, 15. It's 15:15, right? So I am seated in everyone's heart. From me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Any other examples?
6th chapter.
Yes. Yes. Jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahitaha. Yes. If one has conquered the senses, one is peaceful, then one can actually commune with the Paramatma. Thank you. Thank you very much. And there's other ones from the 13th chapter. Kshetramam Chapimam Vidi Sarva Kshetreshu Bharata. This is very particularly important because it indicates that there are two kshetragyas, knower of the fields. We're one, and Krishna's the other. But Krishna's Sarva Kshetreshu. He's in all bodies, so he knows everything. His consciousness is pervading everything. Avibhaktam Chabhuteshu Vibhaktam Eva Chastatam. That the Supersoul is, this is also from the 13th chapter, the Supersoul is Avibhaktam, undivided, Vibhaktam Eva, but appears to be divided. So can anyone give me an analogy that helps us understand that?
Sunshine, you have 100 pots of water.
Yes.
And there's one sun is fully reflected in each pot of water.
Very good. This is the Paramatma Tattva. We've got some analogies to help us understand. Any other examples? Crystal, and when there's mirror.
Multiple mirrors in one light.
Yeah. And there's like the light in the crystal, or gems. So many gems, the light appears, but it's actually coming from one source. So in this way, we have an understanding of the Supersoul. And it's said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Jivi Shakshad Nahitati, Guru Chaitya Shiksha Guru Hoy, Krishna Mahan Swarup. That the Chaitya Guru, or the Supersoul, is not accessible to the Jiva. Therefore, Krishna appears as the Acharya. So when we think of the Supersoul, we have to be careful we don't have material vision. Some people think Supersoul is just the Supersoul. Yeah. Bhagavan is what we're really interested in, and in the Brahman, we don't even go near there, right? That's how we think. But actually the Brahman realization is unlimitedly blissful. Kaivalyam Narakayati. It is like hell if you have Krishna's glance. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Ki Jai. So there is a statement from Prabodhananda Saraswati, Kaivalyam Narakayati. And we should understand, this is like if you've had the merciful glance of Lord Chaitanya, then you see Kaivalya as like hell. Merging into the Brahman is like a hellish destination. But if you're not on that platform, you should be careful you don't disrespect, because Vedanti, tattva vedas, tattvam yajjnana madvayam, brahmeti, paramatmeti, bhagavaniti shapyati, the three phases of the Absolute, Brahma, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And because they're all transcendental, we should have respect for them all. So I have a friend who's very much interested in the Brahman realization. And he keeps telling me that it's Advaya Tattva. There's one. So Krishna and Brahman are one. And in a sense that is correct. Therefore, we have to be careful we don't look down on Brahman. Brahman is, if you've received the glance, Yat Karuna Katakshavai Bhavatam Tam Goram Eva Stumaha. If you receive the glance, the loving glance of Lord Chaitanya, then you can see Kaivalya as like Naraka, like hell. But it's also good to see it as something very, very elevated, a transcendental position, a transcendental aspect of Krishna. So what is the verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita that, how shall we say, it mirrors this verse from the Bhagavatam? Vedanti tattva vedas. The three phases are described in more detail in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's actually the third verse, which is known as the Vastu Nirdesh verse, which means that this is the definition of the Absolute Truth. It helps us define it. Yad Advaitam Brahmopanishadi Tadapyashyatanaba Ya Atmantaryami Purusha Iti Sosangsha Vibhavaha Sadaishvarya Purna Ya Iha Bhagavan Sasvayam Maha Sasvayamayam Na Chaitanyad Krishnad Jagati Paratatvam Param Miha. This is a beautiful verse because it elaborates on the three phases. It says the first phase is the bodily effulgence of Krishna. The second phase is Angsha Vibhav, an expansion of Krishna. And the third phase is the complete form of the Lord, Sadaishvarya Purna. And the last line says something even more amazing. It says, this is actually not just applying to Krishna, it applies to Lord Chaitanya, because Krishna and Lord Chaitanya are the same and they are the highest truth. So even amongst all the avatars, Krishna and Lord Chaitanya, they are known as Avatari, source of all incarnations, you see. So we have 10 minutes left. I'm going to pause here and I'm going to open it up for comments and questions. Adi Guru Prabhu?
You named four of the six grammatical names.
Okay.
What was the one for to and from? What is their names?
Okay, to is the dative.
And ablative, is it?
And from is the ablative, yes.
Ablative. Thank you.
So they are nominative, then accusative, instrumental, dative, ablative, genitive, locative, and vocative.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. As I say, Krishnasya, it's in today's verse, means of Krishna. So now, if you didn't know that before, now when you see verses, you'll see asya, you'll probably find it means of. We have dehasya in the same verse, means of the body. So you can begin, if you haven't already begun it, you can begin your Sanskrit grammar path. And it's in that Lord Chaitanya, Lord Chaitanya, his only business was spreading the holy name, but he did it in clever ways. So at his birth, it's interesting that when Lord Chaitanya was born, he actually caused the holy name to descend before he descended. So he actually caused the birth of the holy name before he then descended. So remember the lunar eclipse, everyone was chanting the holy name. That was the first descent of divinity, and then just at that moment Lord Chaitanya appeared. You see? And actually the birth of Lord Chaitanya and the birth of Krishna are very similar. I mentioned before that for Krishna's birth, it's from Krishna enters the heart of Vasudeva and then transferred to the heart of Devaki. In the same way, Lord Chaitanya entered the heart of Jagannath Mishra and was transferred to the heart of Shachimata. Now we can use the term the mind or the heart. Prabhupada uses both terms. But just to underscore the mystery of the birth of Lord Krishna, it's said by Prabhupada in the 10th Canto Purports that Muyanti yat surayaha, even the demigods did not understand the birth of Krishna. They thought Krishna was in the womb of Devaki. Prabhupada explains this. So they were bewildered. But if you read this whole chapter, you'll find that Baladev Vijayabhusana says Krishna was within the womb of Devaki. So on the one hand, the demigods are bewildered for thinking that, and yet the Charya says that Krishna was there. So it's all a big mystery, the birth of Krishna. And the Acharyas say different things. But yeah. So I was mentioning the Lord Chaitanya. So when he was born, he caused the descent of the holy name. As a child, as a baby, he caused the chanting of the holy name. How did he do that? Yes. So he was famously known as, what's his name? Gaura Hari. Because when the ladies chanted Hari, or when they chanted Krishna, he would stop crying. He had a golden complexion. So Lord Chaitanya is known as Gaura Hari, because he induced everyone to chant, because that's the only way he would stop crying. And then as a student, actually as a student and teacher, he also taught the Krishna consciousness, taught the holy name, spread the holy name through grammar. So he was a student of grammar, but he explained everything in a way that was all related to Krishna. And actually Jiva Goswami's done the same. If you want to learn grammar, the most Krishna conscious way you can do it is to learn it through Jiva Goswami, where he gives the meanings in terms of Krishna consciousness. For example, long and short syllables. Short syllables, they're known as Upendra, and the long ones are known as Trivikram. So Trivikram means big step, so long means Trivikram, short Upendra, the dwarf. So in that way, all the meanings are tied in with Krishna consciousness. That way you can learn grammar in a way that's Krishna conscious. Hare Krishna. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Deepak Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for another scholarly class as usual.
I'm sorry.
I have a question on...
I want Ruchi. Carry on.
I have a question on Super Soul, which I'm hoping you might be able to clarify for me. In this purport that we read today, Srila Prabhupada says the supersoul is present everywhere in both the spiritual and material skies. But in the purport to Bhagavad Gita 7.4, he says that the supersoul is a temporary manifestation. It's not eternal in the spiritual realm. So it seems a bit contradictory there.
So I've researched this before, not extensively, but there is a purport, perhaps in Chaitanya Charitamrita, which talks about the supersoul being eternally present in the spiritual sky. So now we have a apparent contradiction. The way I resolve it is we can either think of the Vibhaktam supersoul or the Avibhaktam supersoul. Remember this verse from the Bhagavad Gita? The supersoul is divided, appears to be divided, but is undivided. So in the undivided sense, the supersoul is eternally residing in the spiritual sky. But in the divided sense, the supersoul is accompanying the jiva on his journey through one birth after another. So that pencil-like effulgence is not eternal. It has a purpose, and it's wound up, and it goes back to it's no longer required, that little manifestation. So that aspect of supersoul is not eternal. It's also said, though, that the supersoul can be thought of as Krishna. See, it's said that in even the spiritual sky, the residents of Goloka Vrindavan, they have Krishna within their heart, but it's actually Ishtadev Krishna. So when we become pure devotees, if we're pure devotees of Krishna, then the supersoul is Krishna in the heart. And as we know, Krishna does reside eternally in the spiritual sky. So that's just some of my limited understanding of that, but maybe someone else can elaborate on how the supersoul both is and isn't present in the spiritual sky.
Ekam Brahma, Ekam Dvitiyam. Yeah. There is only Krishna, so,
Yes.
There's a Vishnu form, there's like 12 Vishnu forms who reside in the body.
Yes.
And there's different Vishnu forms in every atom, but they're all Krishna. So when the supersoul's undivided, he's Krishna, but if you're in Vaikuntha, then he's Lord Narayan or Shankarshan, or but it's all Krishna.
Thank you. Any other?
That's why he speaks Bhagavad Gita. Says, I'm in the heart. Krishna says.
Thank you. You know, the mystery of the supersoul, here's another one. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's a purport where it's explained that the supersoul is entered into first of all, it describes the soul as the 1/10,000th part, the tip of a hair. Then it says that the supersoul has entered into the region of the heart of this particle. So the supersoul, we maybe think of the supersoul as next to the soul, but in the Bhagavad Gita it said the supersoul is within the heart of this particle. We have the analogy of two birds in a tree, but this is slightly different. It's seen that they've got this minute particle, and the supersoul is the soul of the soul. And then how does that fit in with the supersoul being thumb-like in size, or 8 inches, which is what mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, you see? Supersoul is in 8 inches high, then how can it be situated inside this little particle? But the laws of space, time, they don't really apply in the spiritual dimension. So it's known as Chandra Sakanyaya, or is it the other way around? Saka Chandranyaya. Which way around is it? The logic of the moon branch logic. The idea is the moon's far away. How do you point out the moon? You point to a branch of a tree which is close by, and then if you look behind the branch, you see the moon. Or the other one is Arundhati Darshanyaya, that there's this star called the Arundhati, and it's very difficult to see. I forget which way around it is. Maybe there's a constellation. I forget if the Arundhati is the constellation or the star itself. But if you want to point out a star in the sky, it's very difficult. So what first of all you do is you point out a constellation, and then once the person sees the constellation, you say, and just close to that point you'll see a little star, and they say, oh yes, now I see the star. So the scriptures are like that. They're like analogies. They're meant to bring us in the direction of divinity, but it's only when the Bhakti-Devi herself descends in our hearts, that we actually get the realization, Svalpapi Ruchiriva Syad Bhakti Tattva Vibodhikaha. It comes through taste, it comes through mercy, the actual understanding of Scripture. And therefore, our Scriptures are like to help us, point us in the right direction. So in that way, some of the analogies in regards to the Supersoul are in some ways imperfect, but they help us to get an idea of how the Supersoul is divided and undivided at the same time. Hare Krishna. Any other comments or questions? Shall we call it a finish then? Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi. And I'll just say one more thing. Let's have immense gratitude for the Supersoul, because there's a verse in the 11th canto, Nai vopayancha pachitam kavayastavesha buddha yushapi kritam hrida buddha smarantaha yontar bahis tanu britam ashuban vidunvan acharya chechavapasha svagatim bhyanakti. That the Lord appears as two gurus, acharya, the external manifestation, and checha within the heart. And therefore the sages, even within a lifetime of Lord Brahma, they cannot express their gratitude for those two manifestations of divinity which are guiding us back to Godhead. Supersoul ki jai.
Jaya Sitaram Bhagwan Bhagwan Jaya Sitaram. Yes, sorry. Radha Shri Radha Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Govinda Govinda Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Nitai Gaur Nitai